It's Happy Times and Places, a positively inclined Doctor Who commentary podcast in which I, Toby Haydock, watch a Doctor Who story with a friend of mine and have to see if I can guess what their favourite things about it are.
Hello, I'm Ian McLachlan, and I have been a fan of Doctor Who since the 30th of November 1963, when I saw the repeat of An Unearthly Child. Now, the story I have chosen is the Dalek Masterplan.
Well, welcome everybody. I'm recording this on New Year's Day 2022. Patrons will be hearing it about a week after that. Non-patrons, oh my god, the sun is probably shining when you are. But that's the deal. This isn't a current affairs show, and I like the patrons to be far ahead of everybody else because it justifies their kind patronage. But also it means my turnover for them has to sort of race along and be almost live. Anyway, it's been a while since I watched the Daleks Masterplan because Christmas came and went. I had a vague, naive notion that maybe I'd be watching the Daleks Masterplan at the same time as it went out. So, episode 7 on Christmas Day, episode 8 on, around New Year's, around New Year's. And I've got to episode 3, and both of those events have gone. The best laid plans of mice. We'll see what happens to the mice in episode 5. And Toby's. So, listen, so I just watched a New Year's Day Dalek story that I very much enjoyed. Eve of the Daleks. So now we're going to go to the Devil's Planet, episode 3 of the Daleks Masterplan. And my guest is Ian K McLachlan, who will be giving his verdict on his favourite thing of this episode, which is not an episode I know terribly well. I am watching the Loose Cannon reconstruction, and I am going to press play or select, because I'm on the menu, in 3, 2, 1. And, it takes a while to kick in. I wonder if anybody ever syncs up with me. So, I've been quite daunted doing the Daleks Masterplan because it's 12 episodes, but that's nuts because I don't ever do them all in one go. But it is an interesting story. Interesting alert. I need to give £1 to charity every time I say the I word because we've discussed that. I'm going to get even less I if I keep repeating myself. There's a lovely picture of Katerina that we've got, so she starts the action. Peter Purves is very good at this high, sort of dramatic stuff. So I've got a reconstruction of that. These opening moments, even though I sort of know what they look like based on last week's, but clearly when this recon was done, whether the episode was restaged or not, they'd have probably had a go at using at least some of the pictures from it. I don't know offhand whether, because obviously sometimes the episodes were restaged and sometimes they were played in from a film recording done last week, as they're on the set here anyway. And it was a sort of actiony bit. I suspect they probably redid it to go straight into the action. I've recently been having trouble trying to reconcile the episode ending of episode 3 of the Daleks and the beginning with episode 4, because episode 4 has more material in it than the end of episode 3, and we're trying to work out whether episode 3 originally had some of that material and was cut because of damage to the tape or for timing or whatever. But that's all in one of my other podcasts. Too much information. I love this Dalek design, and these scenes are very nicely done in the recon, and they've got some of the blobby signal howl around on their scanners. I like it, the idea that the Daleks are sort of watching rejected Doctor Who title sequences. I would have used that bit. That looks more like time and space to me. And And I don't know. I like these scenes between. I like black and white scenes with Daleks chatting to each other, and I like that. That's quite chilling. That musical sting that's used quite a lot in this story. Now, all I sort of seem to really remember about this episode is that they go to a prison planet, don't they? And there are some hairy convicts, and they're hiding from things called screamers. They're called screamers, which I suspect is basically a couple of feet, swooping into shot, and actors looking scared. Did they do it a bit like that? Hey, I've encountered a few screamers myself, boys? And other jokes like that. Remember, I'm from the 1970s, when you could... where are these stills from? When you could do jokes like that. And now, of course, you're able to do them slightly ironically, as if to take the mickey out of them, whilst doing them at the same time. It's called having your cake and eating it. I might turn the sound up because where's this girl from? She's from the past, which is why we decided she wasn't going to work as a character and wrote her out very quickly. Oh yes, so they're running away with the Terranium core. I like that. I mean, I think the fact that they have Brett with them makes it a bit more exciting than the chase where they're being chased through time and space by the Daleks, because this ties it back to the Earth plot, and ties it in with stuff going on elsewhere. So it's a slightly broader canvas than the sort of slightly more parochial idea, if you like, that they're just chasing the time travellers. I like the fact that Earth has a stake in it. Oh, Zephon, yes. Did I actually... I seem to recall I got diverted, trying not to trip myself up, when talking about Julian Cherrier being of Indian heritage, so is therefore the first credited speaking actor, non-Caucasian speaking actor in Doctor Who, and he gets a bucket of seaweed on his head for the privilege. I read something about Cherrier. It was a court case involving the ownership of some trinkets, some antiques that were quite worth quite a lot. Well, I can't remember the outcome now, but it was a contentious case between him and I think an ex. That's all on record somewhere. So if you want to find out what Zephon got up to in his personal life. Cherrier was actually still alive when episode 2 came back. It's a shame they didn't get him on the... I seem to recall in the commentary there's a bit where Kevin Stoney goes, "Oh, is that Julian?" When it's a close-up of seaweedy feet. I'm sure Peter Purvis said that Kevin Stoney didn't recognise him when they did the commentary because Kevin was so old. I never had the pleasure with Kevin Stoney. What a wonderful, wonderful actor. And we can see in this reconstruction it's got the aliens from Mission to the Unknown in the background as opposed to the aliens from the Dalek Masterplan, because I can see currently a Malfa in the Robert Cartland guys, which would not have been there. But I do, I do like the delegates. Although, Zephon is a little bit too archly overreaching. Is he about to get exterminated? I think he is. But this is where the Dalek sort of unity seems to come apart, because the minute they start exterminating people, you sort of go, execute, not exterminate. It's a bit stupid of the aliens from the other planets to kind of, and they kind of not going, so if they don't like us, they're going to kill us. What does everybody else from the planet of Zephon do now? They've killed our king. Oh, well, do we just wait here to be taken over then? It sort of it shrinks the international politics of it a little bit, if you like. I remember this picture. It's the picture of Stephen and Katerina and Brett looking at the Doctor as he's been doctored on this recon. They've been given masks, and it said, Nicholas Courtney ponders the future where he will Nicholas Courtney ponders the future where he will return as the Brigadier. Got so excited at the idea that the Brigadier had been in Doctor Who before. I love the fact that we've got so many little bits, little clips from this adventure, which by rights should be totally missing. And there is a sense of, threat. That they're on the run. They're quite desperate, and they're going to the planet Desperous, which I wonder what has it always been called that. Where should we keep our prisoners? Well, there is a planet called Desperous. So should we give it some nominative determinism, or was it was called the planet Innocuousness, and then they threw all these prisoners on it and rechristened it. It's a nice spaceship set from what we can see of it, nice and spacious. And I like Brett's costume. I covet Stephen's corduroy jacket. I'm assuming it's a kind of brown. And I'm amazed at the amount of photos that exist. Did they sort of stop taking photos kind of in the middle? I don't think that there are even any photos of the monk, are there? I think it seems as this story went on, everybody lost interest in it a little bit. I don't think there are... Oh, there's the stuff of Sarah aging in the film stuff, isn't there? But I don't think there's any studio stuff from many of the last episodes. There's a few colour photos from the middle. There's that one of Salation right in the background. And I'm sure there are more that exist that exist in private hands, quite what the private hands are waiting for in order to share them. That I find that very... I was going to say bizarre. I think I'll use the word twatty instead. The idea of having the 6 Mona Lisas, but only you can see them. Especially as all this stuff's coming out now. It's probably going to be the last opportunity. Now, yeah, it's a different Mark Corey voice, isn't it? That's Peter Hawkins rather than Edward D'Souza, and I think the message is slightly different. But of course, that doesn't matter because nobody heard that. Nobody's heard that for 4, 5, 6, 7 weeks. So you can sort of have it say what you want, and save having to pay an actor to use, their voice when you've got a perfectly good voice actor here. But it's a shame because now you'd do that. Now you'd hang the expense because actors aren't very expensive nowadays, or you'd probably put it in their contract that we get to lift a little clip of you and use that. And there is a clip coming up. We have got a clip from here we go. I love that this was saved by Blue Peter. Sort of wish somebody had copied the rest of the episode. Oh yeah. Oh. I think that's when I first realised that this bit existed. It was. I'm sure. Is it in Resistance is Useless? They use a little bit of them shaking about, and you go, "Oh, that's Brett and Katerina." So we actually had this before we had episode 2, but I guess Katerina doesn't say anything. Is that, or she doesn't say anything that we can see. So this was all we had of poor old Adrian Hill, apart from the clip from the next episode just before her death. She's. There aren't any guards and warders. Yeah, it's a pretty grim penal system. Courtney's very good. You can see why Camfield cast him. He's great at this stuff. And it goes straight into the Dalek clip. I've got a feeling when it was used on the Blue Peter, did it have the wrong soundtrack on it? I can't remember. But so we have quite a chunky sequence. But look, I love the 3 Daleks at the controls and the black Dalek. Even though it's essentially three props, it's nicely shot and and they look good. They move well. Camfield shoots them nice and close. And it sustains. You can sustain the dialogue between the Daleks. And I know a lot of future writers and directors didn't like that, but you can do it. But it obviously helps that you have the purring sarcasm of Marvick Chen confidently wafting his way through this like a cunning cat who slowly unravels over the course of the story, which we will see. But I think all of the baddies in this make the mistake of thinking they're too clever for their own, of being too clever for their own good. But Kevin Stoney has all the time in the world, and that makes him so watchable and listenable. Because he's not. I think the more relaxed, it's the thing in stand-up comedy as well, the more relaxed you seem, even if you're dying inside, and you can always tell when a comic's struggling because they speed up. And I always say to fledgling comics, if you're struggling, don't try and motor through it, slow down, because if you slow down, you seem confident. If you seem confident, the audience will have confidence in you. And that's the beauty of Kevin Stoney's performance, is that he purrs and he takes his time, and he's not flustered remotely. And so even though he's got these things screeching around him, and the contrast between him and the Daleks is so huge, you can tell why he made such an impact. And here we are. I'm always impressed that we've got photos of these three shaggy convicts, and I like the names Bors and Garge. Kirkson is a bit like a surname of he's the scroty one, isn't he? That the ironically, because he's the least Kirkson is the least dominant when you sort of reach about these two poor women in the corner being fought over by these horrible. It's a terrible penal system that throws men and women together, and the men fight over the women. It's pretty unpleasant. But Kirkson is a fairly sort of snivelly character, and as he's the one who causes Katerina's death. Again, I think these days, he would be built up as much more of a sort of potent threat and as the sort of A-grade villain of this small little segment. But it's remarkably unremarkable, which you could say is either them not having a sense of occasion, the production and the story, in that if you're going to kill off an important character, at least make it happen at the hands of somebody who's got an impressive villain CV. At least a city and guilds in Machiavellianism or sadism or violence or whatever. So Kirkson's reaching for the knife off. Is it off Bors? Yeah, Bors and Garge. Off Bors. I like Bors is, of course, Sir Bors was one of the Knights of the Round Table, wasn't he? It's got its etymology in Old English, but I like it. It's a good name for a baddie, and we've got some decent pictures of these fellows. And Bors is Dallas Cavell, who did 5 Doctor Who's. He's very funny as the Roadworks overseer in The Reign of Terror, who gets hit over the head with a spade by the Doctor. And then he comes back in this. And then he's Captain Trask in The Highlanders, where he's very over the top. Then he's Sir James Quinlan in The Ambassadors of Death, where he's actually quite wooden, bizarrely. It's quite a stiff performance. And then he has very little to do at the beginning of Castrovalva as the head of security at the Faros Project. He's got a couple of lines, but 5 Doctor Who's. That's some actors we cherish a lot, like David Collings and some of those guys. And Michael Sheard did more, but John Abernethy, Kevin Stoney. They great servants to Doctor Who. Didn't notch up 5 parts. And Garge is Geoffrey Cheshire, who Camfield used a lot. Again, he looks great in the Time Meddler as the chief Viking in episode 2. We don't see him again. He's got a good beard and helmet, I seem to recall. And then he comes back as Tracy in the first couple of episodes of The Invasion. And he's a Roboman leader in Daleks Invasion Earth 2150 AD, and for years, IMDb mixed him up with Leonard Cheshire, who founded the charity, and it was one of my first tip-offs to go, don't trust the internet, because I think Leonard Cheshire was Leonard Jeffrey Cheshire. Or there was certainly the names, there was a similarity or even an exactitude somewhere, but you just go, is it likely that they're the same person? No, it isn't. But oh boy, it was hard getting that off IMDb. Oh, this is nicely done. The burning torches in the blackness on the reconstruction. There really is a lot of invention in how they do this. And I like this. This is sort of darkness and nighttime on the planet. And we've set this planet up as this horrible place where these not very nice people fight over weapons and you could die at any minute. And obviously, we know our heroes have something, an escape spaceship, and, all sorts of goodies on board that will be appealing to these obviously dreadful people. That I like that. I think alien planets. Well, even the past in Doctor Who at this time. It's like the show's regulars are being buffeted from hostile environment to hostile environment, and we've never quite had that since I think the Hartnell era, where just the very act of going from place to place is jeopardy. That's why it's a continual adventure in time and space, and each story ends on a cliffhanger, largely, and the alien planets are screeching jungles where the vegetation can be deadly, let alone the populace or the activities happening there, but the very environment. You could land on a planet that has no life like human beings on it, and it's got thorny things that turn you into things, or things that eat you, or things that poison you. And when they go back to Marco Polo's time, and they're cut off from the TARDIS, or cultures are very different. It's constantly the environment that you are in presents the danger as much as the story being told. I saw those pictures of the screamers. Are they called the screamers? The squealers? That's no better, little piggy. They've landed in Deliverance. And I saw those pictures quite late in the day. I don't quite know where they came from. So these recons are a very nice source of obviously the pictures that we have, many of which, as I say, there weren't that many pictures flying about of the Daleks Masterplan. I think it would be amazing to watch the whole thing moving. It's a compromise, no matter how. But this is done very well, I have to say. We've got some nice back shots there of the Doctor and Katarina. They've done very well with Katarina, seeing they had so little to go from. And Hartnell seems, pretty in control of his faculties. He gets less and less to do as the story goes on. This will be quite alarmingly in evidence, if I recall. But I like this setup. Bors and Garge creep through the undergrowth. They're pretty unkempt, sort of shaggy men were quite a thing as well in the 60s. I'm thinking Francis de Wolfe in the Keys of Marinus, and obviously the cave people in the first story. And Prison Planet is a great idea. Shipping off your convicts who are unwanted and sticking them in a hostile environment. It's the sort of thing we do. We're being humane. We haven't killed anybody, but we've kind of let them fend for themselves. And I'm sure there are some people that would approach that and go, if you're such. You're so impressive. You sort yourselves out. So is that about it for Bors and Garge? They kind of get electrocuted. They don't get much of a showing, do they? No, he's not killed them. He's knocked them unconscious. Yeah, okay. I have no, and that's how I like my Doctor. And I know that's hypocritical of me. I have no desire to kill anybody. He said. He's changed his tune since he was going to kill Derek Newark in Unearthly Child. But I do feel, that the Doctor should not take life. Although as I get older, I'm slightly less. And since having kids, somebody tried to hurt my loved ones. I wouldn't be eager, but I think I wouldn't. I say it wouldn't trouble my conscience. It probably would afterwards. I get post-traumatic stress disorders and never sleep because that's because anyone who thinks otherwise is nuts. But considering the idea, so I think the Doctor taking a life as a last resort. I still don't like to see it in the show. I'm still uneasy about it, but that's the inherent contradiction of liberalism, isn't it? Because actually, I know there are times when it has to happen, and you can't then be mealy-mouthed about it if it's something that you accept has to happen. And this is a brilliant scream from Katerina, and a great episode ending because the companion, is she a companion, is in trouble. Doug Sheldon, who played Kirkson, is still with us as I record this. He's in Triangle, I seem to recall. I think he was a DJ of some sort. I think he was a sort of blonde kind of guy, not a shaggy bearded, guy. But he's never done. I don't know anyone that's ever interviewed him or anything. So that's episode 3 of the Daleks Masterplan. What's my favourite thing about that? I have to pause. I didn't know it would play straight. What's my favourite thing? Because I'm going to go over to Ian McCulloch. Ian McCulloch? Yes, my special guest is now the lead singer of Echo and the Bunnymen, or Greg Preston from Survivors. They're both got the same name, but I'm interested that I actually went for the pop music guy first when I actually don't know anything about music, and not the actor who's been in Doctor Who. Something strange is happening in this new year, and I actually watched the first episode of Survivors this morning. So there we go. Did I watch it this morning? Yeah, I did. Oh gosh, I watched it this morning, and I think it went out. Anyway, I'd stop talking about Survivors. Oh, it is Terry Nation. I think it went out on New Year's Day, didn't it? The first episode of Survivors. I watched it this morning without actually acknowledging that during the course of the commentary I did on that, which is for patrons only. So you will never hear that if you are a casual listener. But if you're a casual listener, there's about 200 episodes of this. So frankly, I think that's probably enough for most people. What did Ian K McLachlan like? Will it be the same as what I've chosen, which is I like the nighttime, the setting of Desperus, the idea of the prison planet, the hostile environment. I really felt that quite creepily and palpably, even though it's in a reconstruction. I felt it felt quite dangerous, you know what I mean? And the torchlight, the flaming torches, and so the sort of grim hostility of the prison planet of Desperus. If he says one of those words, I'm having the point. What did Ian K McLachlan think?
Episode 3, Devil's Planet, is interesting that Terry Nation wrote that one because he later, as you know, wrote the Blake 7 series, and there was a prison planet on that as well. And it was, there are parallels between the two of them. The particular scene that stands out for me is the Doctor and Katerina working together to set a trap for 2 of the convicts on the planet, and the scene where the 2 criminals perish because the bat-like creatures are really You don't see much of them, but they're scary when you see them. And I like that scene on Devil's Planet.
Okay, so yes, now, because of course Ian will have seen this, so he'll know quite what we saw of the bat-like creatures. As I say, I'm assuming it was just a sort of a flap here or a foot there, which I like, which all added to the hostility there. So do I get a point for that? When he said he liked Katerina and the Doctor working together, yeah, I don't think I quite do. It was all a bit nebulous, that, Ian. But so was mine. So fair enough. Hoisted by my own nebulous petard. Yeah, it doesn't really matter, does it? Don't say that, Toby. Some people might really care. If you're one of the people who care, I concede. I fall on my own nebulous petard, which hasn't therefore done any damage, but I still don't quite get the point, I think. No, I did say the hostility of the... I'll tell you what, you decide. That's what life is like on the planet Desperus. You gotta scrabble to survive.
I think you'll find. I think you'll find. I think you'll find.
I think you'll find.
And you see, I'm too easily distracted to be making bold claims. So, I was talking about Julian Cherrier being the first non-Caucasian actor to be credited in Doctor Who. That was largely bred from... There used to be a myth that Earl Cameron was the first black actor to be in Doctor Who, and then, of course, anybody that looked went, oh no, Elroy Joseph's in The Smugglers preceded the 10th Planet by one story. But actually, then, of course, as we know, Dwight Wiley, who's the radio announcer in The War Machines, makes him the first black actor in Doctor Who to be credited. So then I started to talk about Julian Cherrier and wanted to point out, but actually the first, but Julian Cherrier is not black. He's of Indian heritage, but he's an actor of colour. I was basically trying to point out that I knew that I was showing off, going, but Julian Cherrier is an actor of colour. And no, he's the first actor. And then I was going to talk about actresses, and I got distracted because, of course, the first actress of colour, I was going to say, there's Zora Segal in The Crusade, but not in Marco Polo, because even though she is in Marco Polo, she isn't credited in Marco Polo. But Xenia Merton, who plays Ping Cho in Marco Polo, who is of Burmese origin, she is the first. So her and Zora Segal are actresses who predate Julian Cherrier. But of course, banging on about Marco Polo, I sort of discounted because there's an actor in there called O Aikida who plays Yeng, and he appears on some cast lists now, never used to, but I still don't think he was credited on screen. But it meant I completely forgot about Basil Tang, who I don't know anything about, but I'm assuming from Basil Tang's name that he is a non-Caucasian actor. So I guess he probably counts as the first non-Caucasian actor to be credited in Doctor Who. So I should have gone into a bit more detail and basically, or when saying I know Julian Cherrier is an Indian actor, not have started to make bold claims about who was the first and this, that, or the other, and then losing my thread and talking about something else. If you're going to do something about landmarks stuff, do it in a pre-scripted one, Toby. That's all I'm saying. So anyway, I am happy for this addendum to contain an errata. No, it'd be several errata, wouldn't it? Errata, an erratum? Anyway, I'm almost undermining the fact that I'm trying to distract you from my nonsense by being Latin at the end, which will paper over my cracks. Anyway, basically, all I wanted to do in that bit of the podcast was say, Julian Cherrier, who played Zephon, was one of the earliest actors in Doctor Who to be a non-Caucasian actor, and I went off on one. So that's hopefully cleared that up. Go away. So that was the end of the Devil's Planet, the planet Desperus. Katerina is in an awful lot of trouble. And people who don't know what's coming might be in for a bit of a surprise. So thank you very much for listening. Come and join me next time. But in the meantime, watch out for those screamers. And thanks very much for listening. Ta-ta. Thank you so much for listening to Happy Times and Places, which is presented by me, Toby Haydock, and my special guest, Ian K McLachlan. These commentaries would be impossible without the support of patrons, who include Paul Carnahan, Andy Case, Richard Chalk, John Curley, Mark Dakin, John Elledge, Gary Gillett, James Gould, Lisa C. Greco, Dave Hoskin, Jessica Jones, Andrew Jordan, Ashley Knight, Clive Lewis, Guy Lambert, James Lark, Gavin McLean, Nathan Martin, David Matthewman, John McClay, Rossa McPhillips, Stuart Mitchell, Nathan Moore, Matthew Newton, Dave Owen, Melvin Pena, Keith Pirrie, and everyone else who I will mention at another time. The music was by Dave Gates, and the podcast artwork is by Dylan Patterson. I really am very grateful to those names that I read out, and indeed all the ones that I didn't. I'm frankly flabbergasted that people put their money where my mouth is, but it really does enable me to get these things out and to spend the time that I do spend, recording them properly, trying to put them together nicely so that they sound professional and decent in your ears. And, I put the work in. So if you would like to support these releases, you can do that at patreon.com/Toby Haydock, where you do get early releases, more frequent releases. You get 3 a week at least, and pictures of my dog. And I'm doing more and more patron exclusives just because I want it to be worthwhile. Although actually I think I'm slightly worried that people will get sick of hearing my voice. But anyway, look, this is what they sign up for, and the feedback is nice. You can also go to ko-fi.com/Toby Haydock if you don't want to submit to a monthly commitment, but would still like to throw me a few pennies every now and again. However, the monthly commitment on Patreon is from as little as £3 a month, and if you do a year in advance, you get a 10% discount. So thank you. What costs nothing, though, is to go on to iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts and to give these things a 5-star review and perhaps a few complimentary lines, please. If you don't like them or want to say something horrible, well, one, if you don't like them, you should have stopped listening ages ago. But if you want to say something horrible, go somewhere that you like and say something nice. But a few nice lines, and definitely those 5 stars really help me to stand out from the crowd and get those algorithms just looking a little bit sexier. And it really is New Year's Day that I'm recording this. So, yes, I've just watched Eve of the Daleks, which I thoroughly enjoyed. Another New Year's Day Dalek adventure, because the Dalek Masterplan did fall in the new year as well, but a few episodes ahead of where I am. And so here's a little exclusive. I texted John Bishop, because I know John. In fact, I think I know everybody that's been in Doctor Who in recent years. Everybody I've ever met seems to be in Doctor Who, because I worked with Aisling Bea as well on the circuit once. Thought she was great in that episode tonight. But I texted John, told him how much I liked what he did, and he said it was a lifelong dream to be exterminated. Who doesn't want to be exterminated by a Dalek? But I think he liked the nice feedback, so that was nice to do. I hope to see him this year, and rib him about fulfilling my childhood dream. What I intend to do is score the winning goal for Liverpool in the FA Cup this year, and then we'll have had a childhood dream swap there. Anyway, that's the post-credit bit, which I know some of you listen to. And I'm giving you a bit of a context of time and place, because it's New Year's Day 2022. When you're listening to this, who knows? But Happy New Year in August.